Welcome to this talk about Alban Berg's opera Wozzeck. We have a new production here at the Royal Swedish Opera, and you are the most important people, I would say, behind this production. So we have Richard Brunel. You are the director of this production. You are a theatre and opera director, and you are also general and artistic director of Opéra de Lyon. Because this is a co-production between the Royal Swedish Opera and Opéra de Lyon. Bienvenue ici à Stockholm.
Merci beaucoup.
And Alan Gilbert, of course, our chief conductor and music director here at the Royal Swedish Opera, and the person who conducts this performance of Wozzeck. So good to have you here, sitting so calm just a few days before the premiere. So I think I would like to start with you, Richard, because as I understood it when the rehearsals began, it started with you seeing the play Wozzeck, because this opera is based on a play by Georg Büchner, a German dramatist. So when did you see it, and why were you so attracted to the play?
I saw the play when I was a teenager, and I saw, I think, more or less several performances of that play. And I was totally fascinated by the fact that Wozzeck is like an anti-hero, like more or less we can say a no-one people, poor people, and alone in the life, and he tried to help his family to exist in that society. And it's really some struggle between an individuality and a collective society. And I remember I was very fascinated, and also because I was I was at the college, and I remember I saw the actors. I was very impressed by the way that they play it. It was so impressive, to be honest, and it was. Oh, and after I remember I saw the staging of Patrice Chéreau, but I discovered Berg after Büchner. The first thing, because Büchner plays it's more or less 15 different fragments, and Berg chose to reorganize that. And when I saw the Patrice Chéreau production, the music was so impressive. I mean, more than impressive. It was a shock for me. And it was a period of my life. I discovered a lot of composer, writer, painter from this period. Expressionism, with theater, with Brecht, or with also... I discovered a lot of different artists of that period, and I was very, very interested in that piece. And I waited a long time, but I remember when I was, I don't know, I remember maybe 30, I met the general manager of the Opéra de Lyon, who was Alan Gilbert, and he said to me, you should do opera in your life, because the way that you do theater could really work with the music. And he said, what you would like to do? And I said immediately, without thinking, Wozzeck. And he said, oh, you have to be very patient, because it's a very difficult piece, and you have to work on opera before in different materials, and you will see later. And I waited for a long, long time. And finally, it happened.
Yeah, now you're...
And thank you I'm very happy to be in the Royal Opera House of Swedish, because for me it's also an honor to be here and to work with Alan and with the marvelous team of this house.
Yeah, and of course this is an extremely fascinating period when it comes to all arts, and not least music, of course. A lot of things happening in Vienna at that time. What Alban Berg and Adolf Schönberg and Anton Webern they sort of revolutionized the whole music. So could you in a easy way, sort of tell us what did they do? What happened with the music at that time?
Well, I think Berg is a very interesting example because he, almost more than any of the other names that you mentioned, Schoenberg, Webern, Zemlinsky, all these composers of this period, they were grappling with this new way of thinking about organizing notes. Schoenberg famously came up with the 12-tone method of composition, which basically, it's actually incorrect to say that it threw away traditional harmony, but it created as a system for organizing harmonic language something that wasn't based on the traditional tonic dominant, the pop tune 1, 4, 5 chords that we're all so familiar with, and which I don't think ever went away. But this idea that you could create a row of notes, all 12 notes on the keyboard, and use that order and turn it around and make it upside down and backwards and use parts of it, hexachord, 6 notes at a time. It was a completely new way of thinking, and I think what made Berg so successful is that he is very much rooted in traditional harmony, and this is not a difficult score to listen to. It's intensely beautiful and luscious and warm and romantic in the best sense, but also is based on this new kind of, you might say, more cerebral way of thinking about composition. And I think this opera works so well because the story is a little bit about a kind of struggle as well between the individual and the society, the one against the group, and human beings, their place in an increasingly industrialized society. And I think it's not such a stretch to think about the impersonal nature of the oppressive society that Wozzeck himself is a member of, and this artistic struggle between these two forces that are pulling from sort of backwards and forwards in music. And Berg, I think, almost more than any other composer, successfully melds the two. It's effortlessly going back between something you might think of as a more traditional romantic sound and a little bit more gnarly, spiky, kind of intellectual writing. And there are fugues, and there are variations, and there are very, very specific forms that he creates within. It's like they're little miniatures of music in the context of this longer kind of grand sweep. It all comes together, and I think in completely brilliant way. It's one of the great masterpieces, both musically and theatrically.
Yeah, and it's rather complicated. I have understood to both sing and play, and as a director, when you are producing a production like this, and you know that they really have to be extremely concentrated, the singers on stage, and you work also with actors. So in this opera environment, you have to deal with also that they have these very complicated things to sing. I mean, how does that sort of affect your way of directing, or maybe it doesn't? I don't know.
I mean, yes, there is absolutely like more or less a constraint to work, but
yeah.
It's a big challenge to work with, and to work with the personality of different singers, but also with the difficulty they have to be very concentrated on the music. And I think also it helps to create a character, but also an organization on the stage, also to find solution, to be on contact with the orchestra. Because I remember, for example, Malin Bistrom, who was playing Marie, told me, "I can't do that. I have to be sure that to be on the right place in the music, of course."
Yes.
I understood that perfectly, and we tried to find little solution to also to play with the character, with this concentration, very deep concentration. Also because. It's also a challenge for a stage director to work with. If you don't want to have this kind of challenge, I think it's better not to do opera. And because the music is so interesting in terms of theater.
Yeah.
I mean, when I worked on this piece, I can say that in each bar there is theater. There is something very theatrical, very, very intense, emotional, and it helps a lot to find ideas, to find a way to work with singers, and also to take the proposition of the body of the singers in this kind of work. But I think the Berg is so impressive and so strong that, as Alan said, I mean, you can develop a lot of work with this music if you have time to do that.
Yeah.
If I may say, I've worked with a lot of directors, and I never once with you felt that there was any compromise on my part expected from you, that the theatrical vision and the musical vision were compatible. And maybe that's because of who you are, maybe because of who I am, but it's also, I'm pretty sure, because of Berg, because his piece is so theatrically conceived. There's one place that I absolutely love. He has a very, very specific instruction. We don't do it exactly this way, but it shows the way he was thinking of how quickly the curtain should go down at the end of a scene. He said first it goes down very quickly, and then suddenly it starts to go slower, and then even slower and slower and so on and so on. He writes that in the score. I mean, what composer does that? He's thinking on such a very minutely detailed theatrical level, and I think that's what makes it such a great opera.
Yeah. But what demands does this score sort of put on you as a conductor? I mean,
well, it's so incredibly detailed and so complicated. You know, this might be a terrible thing to say, but I think hopefully you'll understand what I mean. The details, the actual notes, the exact rhythms are so specific. If you're slightly off, very few people would ever notice. You could sing a wrong note, and I would dare say that 999 out of 1,000 people would not hear that. So you might think, well, does it actually matter then? Does it matter if this is a 16th note or a split second later as a 32nd note? Yes and no. I think part of the message that comes across is this fanatical attempt on the part of all the performers to get it right. And trying to really be faithful to the score takes an enormous amount of energy and preparation and concentration. And that effort in and of itself creates something that the audience takes in. Maybe not consciously, but the fact that the people are up there trying so hard to be right, that is felt more than the actual, okay, was this slightly too late? Was it slightly too high, slightly too low? Of course, when I work with the singers, I try to be as specific as possible. These things do matter, and I do say, okay, that was a little bit too late, or that was a little bit too high. But in the performance, it's not the actual perfection that comes through. It's the 100% focus and effort and desire to be right. And that in itself creates an energy and a concentration. So I think it's important not to give in and to be absolutely rigorous and to try to expect perfection in as much as possible, which we know doesn't exist as we're human beings.
Yes.
But at the same time, this effort to be right and the way you direct people with such specificity. I remember hearing the chorus saying that they really appreciated that you were dealing with their psyche and that their what they were feeling, so they didn't feel they were just being moved from here to there and standing here in this group, and then there was a reason for them to do it. They were actually having specific thoughts that they were asked to embody, and that really comes through. So it's very, very difficult, and you know, it's not written in the way, say, a Puccini opera has this kind of sweep that just, you get on the bus and it takes you away. You have to kind of make things happen at every moment. So it requires a very specific kind of concentration and knowledge of the score, so that when you hear something that's just like, boop, okay, was that on the beat or was that not on the beat? And that requires a kind of knowledge and understanding of the score. So rehearsing it is really crucial.
Yeah.
In the same time, I think it's what your work is wonderful, because each time you rehearse with the orchestra, I discover little details that I never heard before. And it was always very, very lively, very, very precise, I think. And I really, all the stage orchestra, I was all the time oh, I heard that. It's the first time it's so clear for me, and that means. And I think I will continue to discover things during the work.
I'm happy to hear you say
No,
that.
really,
because
really.
I feel like I'm just scratching the surface. It's the first time I'm doing this piece. I've been around productions and I've assisted it, so it's in my system somehow. But I feel like every time I look at the score, which I do every day, I keep studying and studying. I think, oh my God, how could I not have noticed that? Oh, that's important, and it's a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
And also the acoustic of the theater is really interesting in terms of reflecting the different motifs, the different colors, and it's really strong.
I think a key explanation to this is that Alban Berg, he was a theater person. I mean, he knew how to tell a drama, and he actually wrote the libretto himself after Büchner's play.
And he went to
he saw the play,
yeah.
Exactly. That's how he got interested. Sure. And he wrote a lot of songs before and at the same time, this is a masterpiece just musically, like as you have said here.
It's like a perfect musical form. For me, it's interesting that the story is so compelling, even though it's not really like a straight line narrative. It really is 15 individual scenes that kind of go chronologically, but they don't exactly have to be in that order in terms of what's happening. It's just like this kind of vignette and then another one, and then it adds up to this unbelievable dramatic thrust. He really knew what he was doing.
And you have sold this in a very smart way, I would say, Richard, because as you say, you have these short scenes and you go very quickly from outside to inside and so forth. So you have these boxes coming in and out on stage. So please, I mean, the play was written in the 1830s, the opera 1925, but here we will see something much more modern, like sort of today or
or later.
Or
maybe
later. Maybe. Okay.
Dystopic,
maybe
way.
that's perhaps more yours. So tell us about how your thoughts and.
First of all, I think I really observe how the piece is constructed. It's built with the different fragments, and also to link the different fragments because the music made it. And I think for the theater, it's also an idea not to have the curtain each fragment in order to discover another place, the house of Wozzeck, the laboratory of the doctor, etc. And we try to have also with the set designer to work with Etienne Plus and the light designer, and to have the same place. In that place, different scenes could happen, and we choose a place. I mean, medical experiment. Because I thought that in nowadays a lot of young people or people would like to have money and to make some medical experiment to survive, I can say, to have money for the family and it's a way to win money. And I thought about that, but the medical experiment is also, because it's in the text, the doctor made some experiment on the women, and also on Wozzeck, because Büchner was a doctor, and when he wrote the piece, he's like an analysis of the character of this man who one day killed his wife, and he tried to observe what the fact could happen for this murder, I can say, and we develop an idea that in that Wozzeck has got a lot of hallucination. It is also in the text.
Yes.
I think we take all the things in the text what can help the dramaturgy and the link between the character, between the relation, etc. And he tries to do this experimentation, but step by step it's too much, and he loses. And the people who are trying to do an experiment on him lose the control of him. And at the end, it's question of responsibility or guilty. Wozzeck is really guilty if he's not really responsible of his murder. We can have this kind of question. And could you be guilty of something you are not aware, I can say. And I think the piece is really interesting to nowadays to also to ask questions like that and to explore. I mean, also not to be too much naturalism or too much realistic, but in the same time to create an empathy with the audience, but maybe in the future. It's not really on how nowadays. I mean, we try to experiment not only our time.
And it's almost like a movie, I mean, like a film actually. And also the way that Alban Berg has written these intermissions, förvandlingen, in between the different acts and scenes. It's a very smart way, I would say, also for the people in the audience, because it's so much, you have to really, it's quite a lot to swallow. I mean, it's a quite hard story. It's the terrible things happening, and then okay, that happened, and then you get this music intermission, and then you can sort of, okay, that happened, okay, what will happen now, and then that counts. So it's a very smart way of I think telling the story, so how do you agree? Do you think that this is a filmic way of also in the music, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, they're sort of jump cuts. It's not a through line, but there is a kind of logic to the way the emotional tension builds throughout it, and the little connecting musical moments, which are so amazing and evocative. They really use the material from the other, the music that is supporting the singers, and so it's incredibly. It's like a psychological portrait in between, and it puts you in the right frame of mind. And even if you haven't studied the score, you can certainly identify elements and almost like Wagnerian leitmotif that trigger images of themes or characters feeling or how they're reacting to something, and it's a real meld of the story and the musical materials.
Yeah. So if you compare the play with the opera,
the opera is much better.
Yeah.
The opera is absolutely. It's a masterpiece. I mean,
Perfect.
It's
Perfect.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because Berg chose. I don't know, but he chose the perfect different fragments, and he creates something very, very strong. I mean, more than the play, if I can say. I saw several different ways that it's put on the theater, but it's not so strong than the Berg opera. Berg creates something absolutely genius, absolutely. Voilà.
Yeah.
And it's too bad that it's still such a contemporary story and such a theme that really speaks to our times now. About the depersonalization and the oppression of the people in power and the tendency to evil that kind of goes against individual human nature, and you see it over and over, and unfortunately still today. And I wish it weren't so, but it's really an important piece to be doing.
Yes, and we are so much looking forward to hearing and seeing it now. So thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.